On the morning of February 11, 2011, New York City awoke to a terrifying nightmare. Over the next 28 hours, a young man would strike fear into the hearts of Brooklyn, brutal, irrational, and unstoppable. His name was Maxim Gelman, who the media would later dub Mad Max for his cold-blooded, inexplicable actions. Maxim was not a professional killer. He had no murder record, no formal plan, and no clear motive. But that made it all the more terrifying. Because you never knew, could you be next? Maxim Gelman, 24, lived with his mother and stepfather, Alexander Knetsov, in the Sheepshead Bay neighborhood of Brooklyn. He had been arrested a few times for graffiti and prescription drug trafficking, but never for serious violence. Then, in the early morning of February 11th, Maxim came home and demanded the keys to his stepfather's Lexus from his mother. When she refused, he went berserk. Alexander stepped in to intervene, cursing Maxim in Russian. And then, the worst happened. In a fit of rage, Maxim took a kitchen knife and stabbed Alexander repeatedly, 55 times in total, from his forehead, temple, chest to armpit, until the handle broke. He grabbed a meat fork and continued stabbing until Alexander was no longer alive. His mother called 911, screaming, "He's going to kill me!" But it was too late. Maxim stole the Lexus and fled the scene. The police quickly discovered that this was not a simple family murder. At this point, another face began to appear, Yelena Bulchenko, Maxim's ex-girlfriend. Despite only dating her for a month, he was so obsessed with her that he graffitied hearts with her name all over the place, even calling it the altar of Yelena. That afternoon, while Yelena was still outside, her mother, Anna Bulchenko, was home alone. Maxim broke in, asking for Yelena's whereabouts. When he got no answer, he stabbed Anna 40 times, then lay outside the door, waiting for Yelena to come home. The moment Yelena opened the door and saw her mother lying in a pool of blood, she panicked and ran outside, calling the police, screaming. But it was too late. Maxim caught up with her, stabbing her 11 times in the middle of the street, right in front of the neighbors, one of whom tried to stop her, but couldn't. By the time the fire department arrived, Maxim had fled again. Yelena had died. 41415. The police were called in from all over Brooklyn. Maxim's picture was on every newscast, every website, every street corner. But he kept getting away, and killing again. Over the next few hours, he crashed into a 41-year-old school security guard, Adamantia Nikolakis, breaking his leg. He stabbed the driver, Arthur Dento, 60, in an attempt to steal his car. He survived. He then deliberately stabbed Stephen Tannenbaum, a rare coin expert, to death as he walked. He then stabbed taxi driver Fitz Fullerton with a box cutter, leaving him with injuries to his face and wrists. He then stabbed Sheldon Pottinger, 25, multiple times and pushed him out of the car, as he sat with his wife outside a church. In total, Maxim killed 4 people and injured 4 others, all in just 28 hours. As the city was gripped by fear, Maxim managed to evade the police. He boarded the subway on line 1, sitting next to a woman reading a newspaper with his picture. She immediately got off the train and called the police. Transit police began searching the entire Penn station. Finally, when the 3 train pulled into the station, officers Terrence Howell and Tamara Taylor boarded the train and headed straight for the control room, where Maxim was trying to break in. At that moment, he suddenly turned and came face to face with a passenger, Joe Lozito, an ordinary man on his way to work. Maxim pulled out a knife. Joe was stabbed in the face, head, and hand, but still fought back. Unarmed and untrained, Joe tackled the killer, while the police were still hiding in the control room. It was Joe who held Maxim down until the police stormed in and arrested him. When he was subdued, Maxim showed no remorse. He laughed and said, "Stay away from angel dust. I did it because I have cancer." On him, the police found a bloody knife, a box cutter, a fruit knife, and $1,000 in cash. Not a single trace of remorse, not a single tear. Maxim Gelman, 24 years old, without a steady job, a former immigrant child from Ukraine, now became one of the most notorious serial killers in New York City history. After being restrained on the 3 subway train at Penn Station, Maxim Gelman was lifted off the tracks in a blinding light, his face covered in blood, his hair disheveled, his eyes lifeless. A reporter shouted from afar, "Why did you do that?" Max just sneered, then said dreamily, "Don't touch the angel dust. I did it because I have cancer." No one knew if he was telling the truth or making it up. But after 28 hours of chasing, the whole city seemed to have been relieved. The nightmare had been caught. The police quickly searched him and found a sharp knife with human blood on it, a box cutter, a fruit knife, 3 razor blades, nearly $1,000 in cash. That was the entire luggage of a serial killer with no clear target. No guns, no high-tech weapons. Just ordinary objects, but when they fell into his hands, they became terrible murder tools. Maxim Gelman was born on May 31, 1987, in Ukraine. In 1994, his father came to the United States to find a new life. 2 years later, his mother and Maxim also settled in Brooklyn, New York. His father returned to Ukraine shortly after and died there. Maxim became an American citizen in 2005. He attended James Madison High School, then transferred to Abraham Lincoln High. He had no friends, no girlfriend, and was ostracized by the graffiti community for causing trouble and ruining their reputation. Without a stable job, Max made a living by selling illegal painkillers, and was arrested several times for graffiti that damaged public property. But no one expected that in just one day, he would kill 4 people and injure 4 others, thanks to his loneliness and delusions that society had not detected in time. When arrested, Maxim did not keep silent like many other criminals. He talked continuously, confused, paranoid, and emotionless. He believed that the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, was watching him, that there were cameras in every corner, and that everything was a setup to harm him. Even at his first hearing, as he was being taken from Brooklyn's 61st Police Station, he screamed abuse at the angry crowd outside. The crowd shouted back, "You scum! You animal!" But Max only shouted, "Shut up, man! It's not true! It was all a setup." Each of his victims left scars, not just on the bodies, but also in the hearts of those they left behind. Yelena Bulchenko, 20, was planning to celebrate Valentine's Day with her boyfriend Gerard Honig, whom she fell in love with after leaving Max. He was the one who cried uncontrollably at their funeral, which was held on the same day. Alexander Knetsov, Max's stepfather, was a decent immigrant who had driven an ambulance for many years in Brooklyn. Max's mother had to fly from Ukraine to have her body returned to her homeland for burial. Stephen Tannenbaum, a renowned coin expert who was respected by collectors of Civil War tokens. He died while walking in broad daylight. Arthur Dento, the driver who was hit and robbed, survived. But he sued the city, claiming that the police had reacted too slowly and had witnessed but failed to stop the attack. However, the lawsuit was dismissed, because the court found that the police could not have predicted Maxim's irrational violence. On November 30, 2011, Maxim Gelman officially pleaded guilty to all charges of murder, assault, and robbery. And on January 18, 2012, he was sentenced 200 years in prison. No parole. Never to be released from prison, he roared in court, smirked as he heard the verdict, even yelled at the victim's family and teased Yelena's ex-boyfriend. Several police officers had to drag him out of the courtroom because he lost control. His public defender, Michael Baum, described Maxim as mentally unstable, living in a fantasy world. But every psychiatric evaluation showed Max was not crazy. He was aware of everything he did. Survivors begin to piece together their lives. Arthur Dento was slowly recovering from his chest wound. Sheldon Pottinger, who was stabbed in front of a church, said, "I'm blessed to be alive." Joe Lozito, the unarmed man who took down Mad Max on the train, became an unofficial hero. He even criticized the NYPD for not acting faster, and New York lived on, but each one with a scratch on its memory. A scratch of an unforeseen day when madness crept up on the streets, from the main roads to the trains, from the kitchens to the sidewalks. New York City is a place that never sleeps. But after Maxim Gelman's 28 hours of madness, perhaps for the first time in years, the city came to a halt in confusion. People locked their doors, avoided strangers, and began asking questions that no one could answer satisfactorily. How could a young man, with no previous murder convictions and no signs of serious mental disorder, become a serial killer overnight? According to Maxim himself, he believed that the DEA, U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, was watching him. He believed that there were hidden cameras all over his house. He believed that Yelena, his ex-girlfriend of only a month, was a link in the plot to harm him. Many people believe that Maxim showed signs of paranoid hallucinations, possibly related to the use of angel dust, PCP, a powerful hallucinogenic drug. But the court confirmed that he was competent to bear criminal responsibility. So, in the end, was he crazy, or was he sanely evil? Perhaps the most frightening thing is not that he killed people, but that he killed without feeling guilty. He did not flee because he was afraid, but because he wanted to continue to steal cars, to hunt them down, to be remembered. Among the victims, Yelena Bulchenko left the deepest mark. A 20-year-old girl, young, smart, dating someone new, preparing to celebrate Valentine's Day happily, but then, she was chased, stabbed 11 times in the middle of the street, just because she refused a toxic relationship. On the walls of Brooklyn, after the crime, people found graffiti with hearts and the word Yelena by Maxim himself, as if he was trying to make his obsession eternal. If I can't have her, no one can, the classic words of the obsessive. But who listened? Who recognized the warning signs from the stalking, the controlling behavior? The heart-shaped graffiti everywhere? No one. Yelena died because of that silence. Amid all the chaos, an ordinary man became a symbol of courage. Joe Lozito, he was not a cop. He didn't carry a gun. He wasn't trained to deal with killers. But when Maxim Gelman suddenly pulled out a knife and stabbed him in the face in the middle of the train, Joe didn't run. He rushed in, pinning Mad Max to the floor with his bare hands. Joe held on until the police left the cab, after nearly 2 minutes of standing still. He then received 7 stitches in his face and was treated for wounds all over his body. Even so, the NYPD refused to call him a hero, and refused to pay compensation. Joe sued the city for not intervening sooner, but the lawsuit was dismissed. He said, "I didn't do it for fame. I did it because I didn't want anyone else to die on the train that day." Joe has no credit in his police record. But to the online community and the city's residents, he is the reason Maxim was arrested. What makes a killer like Maxim Gelman? A broken family, a society that ignores aberrant behavior, a legal system that arrests for graffiti but ignores signs of behavioral disorders. and a culture where drugs, isolation, and obsession are considered youthful things. Could Maxim have been saved if someone had paid more attention? If he had been diagnosed with a mental illness? If there had been a place for him to go instead of taking his anger out on others? No one knows for sure. But one thing is certain, he wasn't born a monster. He became one. Since Maxim was arrested, New York has seen nothing like this senseless series of crimes. But the scars he left behind are still there. Mothers lost their children. Wives lost their husbands. People lost their sense of safety. Children who saw Yelena laughing in their neighborhood now grow up fearing that they are being watched, and survivors like Arthur, Sheldon, Joe. Every time they look in the mirror, they see the scars Maxim left behind, not just on their skin, but in their minds. The ultimate question is not why did he do it? It's, how do we prevent the next person from becoming another Maxim? Time of crime, 28 hours, from the morning of 11 to the afternoon of December 2, 2011. Number of victims killed, 4. Alexander Knetsov, Anna Bulchenko, Yelena Bulchenko, Stephen Tannenbaum. Number of people injured, 4. Arthur Dento, Sheldon Pottinger, Fitz Fullerton, Joe Lozito. Weapons: kitchen knife, box cutter, fruit knife. Sentence: 200 years in prison, no parole. Current status: incarcerated in New York State Prison forever. If you find this video meaningful, don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Share this story to remind each other. Sometimes, evil doesn't need a reason, it just needs a loophole. Comment below. Do you think Maxim Gelman is a product of society, or a born killer? See you in the next cases. Always be vigilant. And never stop searching for the truth.